Okay, so we're doing a deep dive today into Adlerian psychology. You ready for this?
Oh, yeah. Bring it on. I've been looking forward to this one.
All right. Well, it's going to be especially fascinating because remember, this whole deep dive is built from stuff you wanted to learn about. So
That's right.
hopefully this is going to be like super relevant to you.
Yeah. No pressure.
Oh, I'm kidding.
All right. Well, the jumping off point is this book, The Courage to be Disliked. And
Oh, yeah. I remember this one.
yeah, you know how it's written like as a dialogue between a young guy and a philosopher?
Yeah, it's kind of cool, right?
I think it really works. It makes it way more accessible because this stuff can get kind of dense.
Yeah.
So, okay, we're going to be talking about some pretty big ideas. Like, are we really free from our past? And like, are all our problems really just relationship problems? I
The big one, right?
huge statement. And then how do we like actually find the courage to be ourselves, even if it means not everyone's going to like us?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
big question right there.
Yeah.
Totally. So, okay, let's jump in. So one of the things that I found kind of mind-blowing about this book and Adlerian psychology in general is this idea that, like, we're not just prisoners of our past,
Yeah, that was a big one for me too.
right?
But-
Like, we have the power to choose how those experiences shape us.
Yeah, it's not just like determinism,
Right. But hold on. I mean, are we saying that we can just, like, ignore trauma or pretend bad things never happened?
That's not quite it. No, it's not about like sweeping things under the rug or anything. It's more about recognizing that the meaning we give to our experiences, it actually matters more than the events themselves.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So, like, how we interpret those experiences.
Exactly. And the book gives this really good example about this woman who was terrified of blushing.
Oh, yeah.
Like that was her big hang up.
Uh-huh.
But it turns out she was actually using that fear as a way to avoid telling this guy she liked how she felt.
Oh, wow.
So her fear had a purpose. It was protecting her in a way.
So it was like holding her back.
Yeah, subconscious.
That's wild. I mean, do you think that happens a lot where we kind of cling to an issue because it's actually serving us in some weird way?
I think it's more common than we realize.
Definitely makes you think.
It does. And that kind of leads into another big idea from the book, the idea that all problems are interpersonal relationship problems.
Okay, whoa, hold on. That is a huge statement.
It is, isn't it?
So you're telling me, like, my fear of public speaking is because of my relationships.
Well, think about it. Maybe it's less about the speaking itself and more about worrying what other people are going to think of you.
Oh, I see.
Like, are they going to judge me? Are they going to think I'm stupid? That
Yeah.
kind of thing.
So it's like tied into that need for validation.
Exactly. And the book talks about how competition can really fuel that, if we're always comparing ourselves to others.
Someone always has to lose.
Right. And that can breed so much unhappiness in our relationships.
That totally reminds me of that part in the book where the young guy is always comparing himself to his brother.
Oh, yeah, the seemingly perfect brother.
Right. And it's just making him feel worse and worse about himself.
Absolutely. It highlights how much power our relationships have. They can either lift us up or drag us down.
Sometimes without us even realizing it.
Totally. But now this whole all problems are interpersonal thing, I mean, it doesn't mean we should like blame other people for our problems, right?
That wouldn't be right.
No, it's not about blame at all. It's more about like taking responsibility for how we let those relationships affect us.
I see.
Like, are we letting other people dictate how we feel about ourselves?
Okay, so it's about recognizing those patterns and then making a conscious effort to
shift them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the courage to be disliked part comes in.
Oh, okay. So this is where it gets juicy.
Yeah, it does. Because the book argues that real freedom comes from accepting that we can't please everyone and that we have to be okay with that.
So being brave enough to be ourselves, even if it means...
Even if it means some people aren't going to like it.
Yeah, but that's easier said than done, right?
Oh, for sure. It's definitely a challenge.
Because we're social creatures, like we crave
Connection.
belonging.
Absolutely. So it feels almost counterintuitive to say we need the courage to be disliked.
It does, right?
Yeah.
But what the book is really getting at, I think, is the importance of setting boundaries.
That's a big part of it, yeah.
Like this whole separation of tasks idea.
Yeah, where we're responsible for our own choices and actions.
But not for...
How other people react to them.
That's huge.
It is.
I mean, so it's like if I decide to pursue a career that my family doesn't approve of,
right.
It's not my job to make them happy with my choice.
Exactly. You can respect their opinion, but you don't have to let it control your life.
And there's that example in the book, right, where the guy is struggling with what his parents want him to do.
Uh-huh.
versus what he actually wants to do.
Yeah, he wants to be a librarian, but his parents want him to take over the family business.
Classic.
It is a classic dilemma.
Oh, I can totally relate to that pressure of living up to other people's expectations.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in that, especially with the people we're closest to.
But so are we saying then that it's wrong to care about what others think?
I don't think it's about right or wrong. It's more about recognizing that seeking constant approval can actually be a trap.
Oh, I see what you mean.
It can keep us from making choices that are truly aligned with who we are.
And then we end up unhappy.
Exactly.
You're bringing up a good point, because if I'm always worried about what other people are going to think, I might miss out on opportunities to discover who I am.
Really am, yeah. It's like giving them the power to define you.
That's powerful and a little scary.
It is a little bit scary.
Yeah.
But also exciting because it means we have the power to choose something different.
I like that. I like that a lot. So how do we balance this, this need for connection, but also this courage to be disliked?
Well, that's where the book brings in this concept of community, feeling like it argues that it's through contributing to something bigger than ourselves that we find that sense of belonging,
So it's not just about setting boundaries. It's also about finding ways to connect with others, but in a healthy way.
Yeah, exactly. And the book makes this really interesting distinction between praise and encouragement.
Okay, I'm intrigued by that. What's the difference? Because they both seem positive.
They do, but think about it. Praise, it often creates this kind of hierarchy, where one person is being judged as superior to another. Remember that example in the book with the mom praising her kid for doing the dishes, but not her husband?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a subtle way of reinforcing who's good and who needs to improve.
Interesting.
Encouragement, on the other hand, it focuses on effort and progress, not just the outcome.
I see. So it's less about judgment and more about just acknowledging someone's effort.
Right, and that can make a huge difference in how we relate to each other.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I know when I feel genuinely encouraged, it makes me want to keep trying, even if I don't succeed right away.
Exactly. It's so much more motivating than just being praised for the end result.
So we've talked about, denying the power of the past, the importance of relationships, the courage to be disliked, and now this idea of encouragement. Anything else we should know about this whole Adlerian psychology thing?
Well, there's one more concept that I think is really key, and that's this idea of living in the moment.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one these days.
It is, isn't it? The book calls it energial living, which sounds kind of complicated.
Yeah.
But it's actually pretty straightforward.
Okay, so break it down for me. What is energial living?
It's basically about shifting our focus from some future goal or destination and really fully experiencing the present moment.
Okay, I can get behind that. I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in the what's next that we forget to actually enjoy what's happening right now.
Exactly. And the book uses this analogy about mountain climbing. If we're so fixated on reaching the summit, we miss out on the beauty of the climb itself.
Yeah, and all the challenges and the scenery and everything.
Right, we miss the whole experience.
So how does this idea of living in the moment connect to everything else we've been talking about?
Well, think about it. If we're always striving for some future state of happiness or validation,
we're never really present.
And we're essentially denying the power of the present moment.
Oh, I see.
We're giving away our agency and letting external factors dictate our well-being.
So are you saying that goals are bad, or that we should just give up on planning for the future?
No, not at all. It's not about abandoning goals altogether, but it's about finding that balance. It's recognizing that happiness isn't something we achieve in the future. It's something we can choose to experience right now in this moment.
I love it. I mean, it's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking, once I achieve this, then I'll be happy.
Right. But that's just postponing happiness.
It is, and it might never even happen.
Exactly. So why not choose to be happy now?
This is all really resonating with me. I'm starting to see how all these Adlerian concepts can really help us navigate life.
Yeah, me too. It's like a whole new way of looking at things.
But I have to admit, it's also a little daunting.
It is a big shift.
It's a huge shift in perspective. Where do we even begin to apply all this to our own lives?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
But I think the first step is just becoming aware of these concepts, and then starting to notice where they show up in our own lives.
That's a good starting point.
It is. And the more we practice, the easier it becomes.
I like that. It's like building a new muscle.
Exactly. And the more we use it, the stronger it gets.
Yeah. It feels like a big shift.
Yeah.
But also exciting. I'm kind of pumped about the possibilities. What about you? What's been like the biggest takeaway for you from all of this?
I think for me, it's that separation of tasks thing. Like, it's so simple, but really profound, just realizing I'm only responsible for my side of the street.
It does take a lot of pressure off.
It really does. It's like, oh, I can finally stop carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, or at least, the weight of everyone else's expectations. It makes me wonder, though, the book focuses on the courage to be disliked. But is there, also a courage in accepting that we can't control how others feel about us?
So that's a good point.
Yeah.
Because we can't.
No, we can't. And I think there's a lot of freedom in that realization.
Yeah, it's both humbling and freeing at the same time.
It is. And it ties into that whole living in the moment thing, too. If we're so focused on what others are thinking, we're going to miss out on actually experiencing our own lives.
We become like spectators instead of
participants.
Yeah, exactly. And the book makes the argument that the most fulfilling way to participate is through contributing to something bigger than ourselves.
That's where we find that sense of belonging and purpose.
It makes me think about that thing you mentioned before about the difference between praise and encouragement.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like true encouragement is about recognizing everyone's contribution, even if it's small.
Absolutely. It's about shifting from a mindset of competition to one of collaboration.
I like that.
Because we all have unique gifts and talents to offer, right?
We do.
And when we focus on supporting each other, it creates a much more harmonious and productive environment,
Yeah, we've covered so much in this deep dive. We've been given this whole new toolkit for navigating life.
It is a toolkit, and the best part is it's available to anyone.
Right. We don't need a special degree or anything to start using these ideas.
Exactly.
But it makes me wonder, these ideas have been around for a while.
They have.
So why aren't they more widely known and practiced?
That's a good question. Maybe it's because they challenge a lot of our deeply held beliefs about happiness and success.
That's true.
They ask us to step outside of our comfort zones and really embrace a new way of thinking.
Yeah, maybe that's why the courage to be disliked has resonated with so many people. It gives us permission to kind of question the status quo.
Then to create a life that's more aligned with our own values.
Exactly. So as we wrap up here, what's one thing you hope our listener will take away from our conversation today?
I hope they'll walk away feeling empowered to be themselves, even if it means, not everyone's going to be on board.
I love that. And I hope they'll remember that happiness isn't some far-off destination, but a choice we can make right now.
Yes, and that true fulfillment comes from contributing to something bigger than ourselves.
Well, it's been so much fun exploring these ideas with you. Thanks for sharing your insights.
The pleasure was all mine.
And to our listener, we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas and see how they can impact your own life. The journey definitely doesn't end here.
Keep questioning, keep growing, and keep embracing the courage to be your true, authentic self.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.